Okay, so one of the first steps we're going to do on the jacket is we're going to be attaching the welt pocket. On the pattern draft, we indicated where the welt pocket was going to go with these two punch holes, and then we block fused the welt pieces, and we also block fused the whole front of the jacket. Okay, so I'm going to take my welt pieces and I'm just going to fold them in half. And I want to give it a lot of steam because I want it to be pressed and I want it to stay in place. Okay, so the next pieces I need other than the welts, my welts are already pressed, is the flap. So on the flap, we cut 4 self and we cut 2 with fusing, so those are block fused as well. So when I apply the flap on the jacket, the fusing side is the part that's going to be facing outside on the body. So on my pocket flaps, I'm going to fuse them face to face, and what's going to happen is on the flaps they have 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I am going to stitch 3 sides, here, here, and here at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to clip the corners, then I'm going to turn it to the right side and I'm going to press it, and at that time I'm going to add 1/4 or 1/8 or double needle top stitch. Okay, so I have my flap, it's top stitched. I have my 2 welts, they're pressed. So we have now the pocket bag lining and then the pocket bag facing. I'm going to do this as if you don't have an overlock machine at home. So what's going to happen is we're going to attach the pocket bag facing to the lining, matching those double notches, because that's going to be the back side of the pocket. So what we're going to do on this is, if you have access to an overlock machine, you would just be overlocking the bottom edge here because it's going to sit on the pocket bag like so. But if you don't have an overlock, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press this edge underneath, maybe 1/8 or 1/4, so that it will be clean, and then I'm just going to run a top stitch along here. Okay, so I have all the pieces for the pocket. The pocket bag facing has been attached with a clean finish to the pocket bag, which is lining. Then I have my flap. My flap has been top stitched, and I have the 2 welts. So I'm going to pull these aside and we're going to go back to the front of the jacket. The front of the jacket has 2 fisheye darts. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have to sew these fisheye darts first. I marked them in pencil so you can see. After the darts are in, I'm going to show you the placement to do the welt pocket. Okay, so I have my punch holes marked, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the fisheye. So 1/2 inch above and below the punch holes and 1/8 to the side, I have 2. So we're going to get these in, and then we're going to use the other punch holes to place the welt pocket. Okay, so we have all the pieces, the flaps, the welts, the pocket bag with the facing attached. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the middle of the flap, and what you can do is you can just fold it in half, and then I marked the center, and I did the same thing with each welt. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have 2 punch holes here. We are going to line up the centers all together. So I'm going to find the center of my punch holes by just placing my ruler between. The darts have been closed. The dart intake has been pressed toward the center front. So when I measure this, I get almost 3.5, which is 1 3/4. So I'm just going to mark that. Okay. And what's going to happen is one of the welts goes below the flap. So we have a welt here. We have a welt here. We're going to leave about an 1/8 or a 1/16 in between, and then the flap goes on top of that. The width of each welt is 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch wide. So I'm going to be sewing in the center of that 1/2 inch. So 1/4 inch from the edge, and the exact width of the flap is where I'm going to sew. I'm going to do 2 rows. I'm going to do a row here, and then I'm going to do a row here, exactly 1/4 inch in, which is the middle of my welt, and then exactly the same length as my flap. So I'm just going to mark that with my ruler so I can make sure that I'm stopping in the same place. Okay, so I have the 2 stitches. I flipped the work over. They're the same length. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a line 1/2 inch before the edge of those stitches, and this is where we're going to be doing our Y cut. So we are going to be clipping in between the 2 stitches, and we're going to be stopping 1/2 inch before the edge. And we're going to do a Y. Once we get to this mark, we'll be going this way and this way. And this way and this way. You have to make sure that you clip completely to the stitch line. Okay, so after the work is clipped, you did your Y clip, you're gonna turn everything in. So I'm gonna turn my welts in, and I'm gonna turn this in. I'm gonna make sure my triangle's back. This takes a little bit of time. And what happens is we're gonna press this into place so the welts, they kiss. I don't know if you can see this small gap here, but the welts should look like they're touching, and then the flap is going to come down like this. Okay, so we're gonna take the pocket bag with the facing and the facing sides at the top, and then we are going to pin it to the top welt, and we are going to stitch right across here, and then we are going to move the bottom of the pocket up, and we're gonna stitch across this welt right across here. After you join the pocket bag at the top welt and then at the bottom welt, we're looking at this. So what's going to happen now is we're going to turn the work this way. I'm going to turn the work over and I'm going to turn it this way, because what we're going to do now is we're just going to single needle 1/2 inch away from the edge on both sides of the pocket bag to close it. There's no need to overlock here because it is going to be sandwiched in between the self and the lining, and then that would be the last step.